The goal over the next half hour is what we call onboard training for all of you. So it's meant to give you a quick overview of what it looks like to be on this team and give you some of the resources and the training that you need. But the catch to that is that it's nowhere near everything that you'll need. So the goal tonight is just to introduce you to some things, hopefully raise some questions that maybe you have or some further training that you would like. We try to include training in almost every Monday meeting that we do, but it's typically short sections of just continued training. One of the goals for all of us on this team is to continually learn and continually grow in our ability to care well for our clients. The wonderful thing is that God's brought together quite a wealth of experience and education on this team. So we have a variety of specialists on this team that can help all of us grow in a lot of ways. So tonight, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So please stop me and ask any clarifying questions as we go, but I'm just going to hit some of the high points. I'll be sharing my screen some, so you'll see some key stuff there. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I say sharing the screen. Probably, Cassidy, you're going to have to give me host. You're going to have to turn the host to me so I can share. If that's okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's start with this document, which hopefully you have all received. If you haven't received this, please let Cassidy know so that she can send it to you. It is the job description for the client care committee. So this is our job description on this team. It's good to keep a copy ready so you can look over this. Part of the goal is to help you to know what your responsibilities are. And then as you go through that, then you can let us know, hey, I don't feel ready for this, or I need training in that. This kind of just walks you through that. So I want to make sure, first of all, you know, there is a formal job description for your position. So again, let Cassidy know if you haven't seen that job description yet. The second document, which I won't pull up, I think we have from all of you, but again, all of these, like just make a note and let Cassidy know if you're missing any of these. The second one that's really important is the confidentiality policy that we have you guys sign. And I want to talk about confidentiality just for a moment. Some of you have backgrounds in law or social work where you're already fairly familiar with this, but for others, it's kind of new to think about how does confidentiality work. I think all of us have a sense, hey, I shouldn't take an application filled out by a client and email it to everyone. We kind of know that. That's confidential information, so we would not ever share documents outside of this team. But in addition to that, confidentiality goes beyond that. We also want to be very careful about who we have conversations with about clients or about privileged information. So you are always safe to discuss anything with this team. So for example, if Chaina interviewed Jane Doe and a question came up about Jane and her past or an issue in her life, Chaina is always free to talk to anybody on this team, including us on staff, about Jane you don't have to get anything else signed. You don't have to have any restrictions in the sharing. You can share completely with this team. You can also share completely and converse completely with the advocate. So let's say that Jane Doe was sponsored by Beth. Well, Chaina can talk to Beth about Jane without any worries because the advocate is part of the process, okay? So those are your free places to talk. Anyone outside of that, though, you have to get permission. We have to get permission. So for example, if you were interviewing Jane Doe and she's talking about employment and there's some questions about her employer, you can't call her employer without Jane Doe's written permission. Okay, so you have to go through a process before that call could happen. Even if Jane tells you offhandedly, oh, sure, you can talk to him, we need to document that. It'd be similar if you send Jane to a companion service. Like let's say that Jane, you find out, hey, she really needs counseling. Let's send her to a counselor. That's great, but there's a process for that. You can't just call up a friend who's a counselor and talk about Jane. You also, if you send Jane to a particular counselor, you can't call that counselor a few weeks later and check on Jane without Jane's permission. So again, the idea with confidentiality is we are always getting permission, discrete written permission from the client whenever we want to talk to anybody who's not on this team or not the advocate. So that's really important. One where this sometimes can come up. I see this often in kind of church world, in that churches are often somewhat loose with sharing things. And so you happen to see somebody at church and, oh, hey, did you know Beth is applying to OnRamp? You can't do that, because Beth may not want the church to know that she's requesting OnRamp's help for a vehicle. We want to protect Beth's privacy. So anyways, that's one of those crucial things. If you see, let's say we gave Beth a vehicle, you see her at the store, you can definitely talk to her about that. But if she's in a group, don't assume that the group knows that the vehicle she's driving came as a charitable gift. We want to respect each client's privacy and dignity, and handle their information carefully. So those are issues that have come up frequently. The only global exception to the confidentiality policy, just so everyone knows it really clearly, is anything that is dangerous. So if you're talking to a client or an applicant or an advocate or anybody, and you get a sense that somebody is contemplating taking their life, you immediately call us. If need be, you call the police. If you get a sense that, let's say you're talking to Jane Doe and she has young children in the home, and you find out Jane talks about one of her children was abused by a teacher or a relative, that is not something that you can sit on. So there are actually formal legal processes and laws for how we have to disclose that to the police. So all of that, don't worry about that. But if anything like that comes up, if ever there's a question of security, safety, or life, you call Cassidy or me or Stephanie immediately, because we do need to immediately engage on that. That safety trumps confidentiality in those situations. So we will frequently need to go to the police, for example, in those kind of situations. So that's the quick overview of confidentiality, very important part of this team. Any questions anyone has on that? Okay, then we'll go to the next thing. All right, let's see. I'm going to take you to our website right here. So this is our homepage, onramptx.org, and a lot of the things that you will need on a regular basis for your involvement in our team are found in a client care committee protected page at the bottom of the screen. So you just go to our website, which again, you should have it bookmarked, onramptx.org, scroll to the bottom. A couple things to notice here before we get to what I'm about to show you. Do notice sign up for OnRamp's email list. If you're not getting our weekly emails, I encourage you to sign up for that. Then every week we post about all the donations we've done. We post pictures, we post updates on the organization. This is the best way to follow what's going on in our ministry. So just put your name and email address and hit sign up and you'll be added to that. The key thing to show you though is at the bottom of the page. So you'll notice it says volunteer login. So you click volunteer login and it takes you to a page here. And there's a few things that are important on this page. I'm going to get to your team here in a second, but what I want you to notice is resources for all OnRamp volunteers. We have a few videos here that we would love to have you watch in your, whenever it's convenient for you. So there's our volunteer welcome video. There's a couple training videos that I've written here, or produced. One is how to share the gospel. One is how to answer the question, what is OnRamp? So it's just to help you to know how to do that. And then one is an introductory letter, just to have an idea, if you've not seen this one, about what OnRamp does. And then at the bottom, frequently asked questions. These are 9 times out of 10, these are the questions people are going to ask you when they know you're involved in OnRamp. So all that's here on the volunteer login page. So again, just to show you how I got to that, very bottom of our homepage, volunteer login, all these videos and resources are right here. So that's for all volunteers. You don't need a password to get to that. That's available for everyone, but please do watch these videos when you get a chance. What I want to talk about now is your own page. It's client care team. So that's what you're on. So you would click client care team and it's going to ask you for a password. Password's very easy. It's capital CCC. So client care committee, CCC. So just those 3, and it is case sensitive. So all capitals. Client care committee. When you enter your password, you're brought to this page, which are resources just for this team. And it's a lot of the key stuff that you'll need on a regular basis. So let me walk you through some of these really quickly. We have 4 forms that you'll use on a somewhat regular basis. One is request repair for on-ramp donated vehicle. You're new to the team, so this isn't going to be something that you'll probably do initially, but at some point you will, and it's pretty frequent. So let's say if we were a year from now, Mary, let's say that you had been the point person on Jane Doe's interview, and we gave her a vehicle, and Jane calls you up and says, my vehicle's making a funny noise, I need help. This, Mary, is where you go to fill out a request to us to get Jane's car into the shop. So you don't need to call me on the phone, you don't need to send me an email, you just fill out this form and everything's taken care of. The nice thing with this form is you don't have to type Jane's name. Every client, well, this is where you put your name. So in this case, it's Blake. Client name, this is all the clients we've ever given a vehicle to. So you would just go here and select, let's say it's Zena Kent calling you up. So Zena Kent, and we always, one of the things that you'll see as you go is after we give away the vehicle, when we have continued conversations with clients, we always want to check on their insurance. It's so common for people to lower their insurance or even drop their insurance because if they're financially struggling. We understand that, but it is important to change that back because lack of insurance is a sure way to knock somebody off their path if they get in an accident. So we want to find out what their insurance status is, whether they still have it or are past due or whatever it might be. So you'll need to ask about that. Then which shop is it going to? I'll help you with that when it's time. What day is it expected to arrive, mileage? Just if you're just filling out a few things here, and then you hit submit, and everything is taken care of for you. So at that point, when you have submitted this form, you have handed this client over to Stephanie and myself that repair is needed, and we take it from there. So you don't have to be the one telling them what shop to go to or arranging any of that. Okay, so that's a very common one. You'll end up not yet, but eventually you'll do that a good bit. Another one that we're trying to let people know is out there is requesting a gas card. Because of inflation and how much it's hurting people, we have had multiple donors step up with lots of gas cards. So if you're interviewing somebody, this is probably where you'll see it first. So let's say you have an interview next week with Jane Doe, and in the conversation you find out Jane is struggling to afford groceries and fuel. Well, it may or may not be a time to give Jane a car at this point, but we can help her with groceries at least this once. So you would come here and you would submit this information about Jane and what you suggest in terms of how much money we give her. And this is designed to be a gas card, but it is HEB card, so it could be used for groceries, but primarily for gas. We ask a number of questions here about the client, but you submit that, and then we can send a gas card to that person to help them out. So that would be for somebody you're interviewing, as well as more likely it's for somebody who's an existing client. So if we gave the vehicle to Jane 6 months ago and you find out, yeah, Jane, she had a job change and lost some income, or she got sick and lost some income and she's struggling, you'd fill this out and we would send her a gas card. Okay, so close that form. Third one, 1 month follow-up form and then 6 month follow-up form. You will soon be asked to do follow-ups. So there's the initial interview when you're interviewing somebody, and then there's follow-ups at the 1 month point, the 6 month point, and we've created really simple forms for you to use. So Jane, if you were asked, hey, can you go do a 1 month follow-up on Jane? You would just open this form. It uses your email address, you put the client's name, and then you just answer these questions. It just walks you straight through it. Really simple. And then when you hit submit, you're done. It goes automatically to Cassidy. We have that information. So that's how we do follow-ups. Again, the one thing to be aware of is in the follow-up interview, if you find out there's a safety or security risk, then you can still finish this, but don't wait for this. Call us up, because we want to take care of anything that's a safety risk immediately. This is more for collecting the data and watching over them long term. It's not really a place to put a safety risk. Okay. So there's 1 month versions and 6 month versions of that. So for the 1 month follow-up, the 6 month follow-up. We do 12-month follow-ups, but those are more complex at this point. Next on the list, stop me if you have any questions. Next on the list is community resources list, which you click that and it downloads to your computer. And this thing is really, really great. Whenever somebody asks you for help with any kind of thing in the world, chances are good the resources you need are on this Word document. It's relatively long, 11 pages, divided into different groups. Like if somebody needs housing assistance, Stephanie put this all together for you. It basically, you go through and here's lots of great housing assistant leads for you. If they need help with food, here's 3 resources available for food assistance. So this is for you in any interaction. So it can be an interview you're doing, a follow-up you're doing. It can be just conversation in the community. This isn't protected. This isn't, copyrighted. You can share with anybody. The goal is to get that information out there and help folks who need help. So anyways, that's all available to you from that website. We'll try to update it from time to time, but lots of really great resources for you there.
I was gonna say real quick too, if y'all have resources that y'all know of that are not on that list, please tell Cassidy or me, and we can update it, because I haven't touched that in probably 6 months to a year. So there might be some new stuff that we are not aware of, or connections that you guys have. So let us know what those are too, so that we can update that thing.
All right, 2 more things on the list. The last one, I just realized, here is your job description. So if you're ever looking for a copy of it, it's on this protected web page for you. Last document we haven't talked about, sample red flags and action steps. So one of the things that comes up very commonly in interviews with folks, we'll talk about the interview form in a moment and how that process works. But when we do interviews, people often wonder, how exactly do I do an interview? How should that work? What are the things that I'm looking for? Well, we put together this document to help you with this. So red flags means when you're interviewing someone, you're asking a bunch of questions and you're filling out notes and things of that nature, but you're particularly listening for what we call red flags. So red flags don't mean the person is never going to get a car from OnRamp. It's not like that. Red flags, though, mean this is something we need to talk about. This is something we need to pay attention to. This could be a concern. So when red flags come up, you need to make sure as the interviewer that you note them. So we've placed this document on the website so you can easily, you can print it if you want a physical copy or download it to the computer, whatever you'd like. You should just read through these at some point. So, there are things such as, applicants' monthly expenses exceed monthly income from all sources. Okay, that's a red flag, because how are they going to afford gas? How are they going to afford insurance if they're already in the red? Others are, you're kind of feeling, they're a little more feeling it out. Something like sponsors unresponsive or dodgy. Okay, what's going on there? And we need to change that word sponsor to advocate. Sponsor, we really need advocate. So if the advocate is dodgy, that's weird. That's concerning. So these are just red flags that we're looking for. Again, if you see a red flag, that doesn't mean that you just tear up the application and you're done, but it means more you're gonna, if you have a highlight, however you take notes, highlight it, note it, because we'll want to talk about that. So those are red flags. The second page is sample action steps. And what we mean by action steps is almost every client that we accept into our program will have 1, 2, 3 things that he or she must do before we give them a vehicle. And they could be very simple, like you need to get insurance. That's going to be real, of course. To get a car, you got to have auto insurance. Others might be you need to meet with Jay Mater and to get financial counseling, like budget counseling. Others may be, hey, you need to set up a bank account, or you need to meet with a counselor because you have some stuff you've never gotten into or addressed. You may need to meet with a doctor to discuss your health because maybe you really don't have a sense of where your health is. Whatever it might be, there's lots of different options here. This is by no means like exhaustive. You could come up with other action steps. I was in an interview recently with Cassidy, and in the interview, because I've done this for a long time, I was able to hear the guy we were interviewing say certain things, and I could think up action steps on the fly because I've done this for 5 years now. But I reminded Cassidy in the moment, you don't have to come up with action steps in the moment. You don't have to close the interview and say, here are the 3 things you have to do. Not at all. You just want to be taking notes and thinking. And so when you come back to the rest of the team and say, hey, I interviewed Jane Doe and here's how it went, then we'll talk about action steps. You say, I feel like maybe Jane needs to do X, Y, or Z to be in a good position. Because remember, the goal of the vehicle is to help the person move towards self-sufficiency and move forward in life. And so chances are good that the vehicle is not the only thing in their life that they need help with. And so action steps help us to use the vehicle as an incentive to work on lots of different areas in life that the person needs help with. So we're thinking about the whole of their life. We're even thinking about their community. Do they have people who love them and are caring for them? All every aspect, thinking about all that. So those are the documents for you. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. The basic process, just so you have a sense of how we operate, we do all our interviewing in pairs. We found that to be the best scenario. And then the client or applicant, when you interview them, they're not a client yet, he or she will be there and the advocate will be there. And there might be a co-applicant, like if it's a married couple, you'll have both of them there. So you could have anywhere from 4 to 5 people together in the interview. Now, interviews, one of the common questions that come up is in person or by Zoom. Either are fine. You should talk to the whole group and see what works best for folks. So both of those are good. How long does an interview take? Anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the specifics of the case. Cassie and I had one recently where there was some drug addiction in the past of the person, and we needed to talk about that a little bit and spend a little bit of time finding out if they had all the care that they needed. Other interviews though, we've done, man, the person really has everything they need. It is lickety split and we're done in less than 30 minutes. So time is very flexible. There is a form that you'll get from Cassidy that you will use for the interview. So you don't need to, you are welcome. We have, every interviewer has their own style. Sometimes I bring my pad of paper. One of our team members, Betty, she's always got paper that she writes on and then she types the stuff later. I tend to type it as I'm going into the form and then hit submit. Totally up to you. The key is, however you take notes, whether it's here or a Word document or whatever, you need to fill out the form that Cassidy will send you. The form is the place where we record our official interview. So it's real important for our organization. Both people from OnRamp will fill out a form, unless there's a technical problem, which we've had that before where one person couldn't access the internet, then don't worry about it. But the best practice would be that both of you would fill out the form yourself so that for each applicant, we're getting 2 interviewers' notes and impressions. Okay, so we can kind of see that. It just gives us, it's just good practice. Both of you are recording that. So you will see Cassidy's done a great job of giving very specific instructions, like interviewer 1, ask these questions. Interviewer 2, ask these questions. Really simple and straightforward. When it's time for each of you who are new to the team to do your first interview, you won't need to be the one in charge of the interview. You'll just be kind of what we call second chair at that interview. So you'll ask some questions, but the lead interviewer will lead for you. So don't feel like you're jumping into the deep end. We'll walk you through that and help you with that. So you'll get from Cassidy, when it's time to interview somebody, you'll get that form. You'll also get their application, which comes in 2 parts. So like a biographical part and a financial part. And then you'll also get the form that the advocate filled out, nominating them. So 4 total things that you'll get for each interview you do. So that interviewing process, super important. It's probably the most critical and challenging thing that this team does, because it does take some expertise. It takes some time and effort, because we're really trying to make good decisions about not only who we give vehicles to, but how we give them vehicles. Because again, when we give a person a vehicle, this is such a crucial moment in their life for us to be able to encourage them in many different realms. So we want to use it to its full potential. How can we help you with mental health? How can we help you with community? How can we help you with relationships in this moment? So these interviews are really important. We're going to give you more training, so don't feel overwhelmed at this point. Again, just introducing you to this interview idea. And again, none of you who are new to the team will need to go out and like do that as first chair by any means at the beginning. So that's the interview. Then following up our process, once those forms are filled out, if you do the interview, then you will represent that applicant at this meeting that we have every other week. and you'll see us do it tonight. So you'll say, hey, I met Jane Doe. Here's what I thought of the interview. So your partner is sharing too. And we as a group will make a decision. So just to be clear, when you're interviewing someone, you do not have the authority to reward them a vehicle. Neither do I, as the founder. I don't get that authority. Authority of who we accept as clients is vested in this team as a team. So we make all client decisions as a team. So all that to say, if the person is pushing hard, can you tell me? The answer is always no. The team will make a decision and we'll get back to you in 2 weeks or a week if we're close to the meeting, however long it is. So we as a team accept or deny or whatever, or put on hold, whatever we decide to do with the applicant. If we accept them as an applicant, Cassidy kind of takes over with sending them the action steps and the documents that they'll need and all of that. And we give them the vehicle. And typically, when we give them the vehicle, we're going to want one of you who was in the interview to be kind of the point person to do the 1 month follow-up and the 6 month follow-up and eventually the 12-month follow-up, because they've met you now and you've met them. And so you get to continue to follow up and see how they're doing and see how you can continue to invest in their life, how OnRamp can continue to invest in their life and help them. That year of support is really one of the key things that our ministry does. We do all the maintenance during that time, but that's so that we get to continue to invest in their life. They continue to take our phone calls. So that's a big win because it allows us to have a bigger impact in the lives of those we serve. So that's the basic process of what our team does. There are always other duties as assigned that we'll kind of work with, whether it's, when COVID hit, we as a team were talking through how to help existing clients with utility bills and kind of odd and end stuff like that. But the core of what we do is that interview and then follow up with our vehicle donation clients. So I have spoken long enough. That's an overview of what we do. Let me see if there's any questions that any of you new folks have, or Cassidy or Stephanie, if there's anything. Well, there's a million things I missed, but if there's anything really important you're like, we should talk about that, feel free to jump in.
Do we have our own email that we're using, or will we have one through y'all?
It is up to you. So you all have the option, if you would like, and an @onramptx.org email address. I can create that for you. You just have to make sure you check it. So it's not an alias that goes to another, that's a new email. So if you prefer it to go to your existing email, then that's what we have right now, I think, for each of you is your current email address. So you are welcome to use your current email. Make sure that Cassidy has whatever email you want used, if she doesn't already, and then your cell phone number, and make sure you have Cassidy's number. If you're ever wondering, who do I call or talk to on the OnRamp team, Cassidy is your primary point contact for this team. However, you can get hold of any of the three of us for anything. And if it's an emergency issue, a safety or security issue, I encourage you to just get hold of all of us. So, so whoever can deal with that first can jump in there. And we have had those. So just be aware that not common, but it is something to be aware of, and we want to handle those well.
Are those phone numbers available on the website? Because I think I've just communicated via email.
We will do that. Cassidy and Stephanie, why don't we, there's a little chat window here, so we can all give them our email address, or give your email address and whatever phone number you want folks to use. There's mine. You are all welcome to have that. I prefer my cell phone number not to be handed out to clients, but unless sometimes I often do that, but just in general. Any other questions or additions?
I had a question about the contact information, because when new people come on, is there a way, can we have that given to us? Because it's every time I try to contact a person to do the interview, it's like, okay.
That's a great idea, Betty. Yes, we can definitely do that. I think actually maybe the best part, Cassidy, I bet I could add that to the CCC page, like that our team's page on the website that I just showed you all how to get to. I'll add a little, we have it somewhere, but then we'd have to share it every time. So I'll post it online. So it won't be for the world to see, it'll only be for our team to see. But yes, I'll put that on that page.
Like, can you put a copy of that on the Google Drive?
Yes, absolutely. Which we may already have. Do we already have that, Cassidy? Isn't there some document that's like CCC team members?
Yeah, let me check where that is exactly.
While she's looking for that, any other questions or anything? Okay, for all of you who are new to our team, this has been a brief introduction, and Cassie, you can stop the recording whenever you would like. Let me encourage you to submit to Cassidy or myself any ongoing questions that you have. So one of the things that is difficult for me is to know what to be training on, because I've done this for a lot of years. So there's things that come kind of second nature to me that isn't helpful because others don't have those as second nature yet. So all that to say, I've walked you through a lot of things tonight, but I would love it if, you know, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, you're doing an interview or you're talking to a client or something just comes to your mind and you're wondering, how in the world do we do that? Well, please tell me that you're wondering that, and we'll add it to the training.